Japan is at the same time steeped in tradition and ultra-modern. It's a country where you can buy almost anything from a vending machine and find a culinary scene that's second to none. From the stylish corners of Tokyo, to the traditional ceremonies in Kyoto, to whatever it is this is, Japan is sure to satisfy the travel itch of even the most seasoned explorers. Tokyo's Narita Airport is a major hub. There are direct flights from all over the world, including multiple flights each day from New York. It's a 15-hour ride, but it's still a direct flight. While you'll certainly need more than a couple days, with just 5 nights total, you can immerse yourself in Tokyo and even side trip to the nation's cultural hub of Kyoto. And those two cities, Tokyo and Kyoto, are the ones we'll be visiting on this trip. We begin in Tokyo. 15 hours on a plane is a long time, but going to sleep when you arrive is a terrible idea. To beat jet lag, you must shock your senses enough to keep them awake, and there are few places better to do that than at the famous robot restaurant.
Welcome to the robot!
It's hard to describe exactly what this place is. Part girly show, part live-action animatronic robot brawl. At the same time, Robot Restaurant has absolutely nothing to do with Japanese culture, but feels entirely Japanese. Oddly enough, the one thing that Robot Restaurant is not is a restaurant. You have the option of ordering a bento box, but I'd stick to the drinks instead. Maybe a bucket of popcorn. Robot Restaurant is located in the Shinjuku neighborhood of Tokyo, which could also be described as downtown Tokyo, or the Red Light District, or home of the world's busiest train station. There are a lot of lights and a lot of people. Tucked away next to the train station, and just a few minutes walk from Robot, is a collection of little passageways filled with tiny eateries serving Japan's original fast food, yakitori, or little skewers of grilled meat. There are other names for these streets, including Piss Alley, but that name harkens back to last century, before the clean and well-kept restrooms were added and drunk salarymen would relieve themselves on the nearby train tracks. Eating here is a great Tokyo experience. Approach it like you would tapas. Don't just eat at one place. Have a skewer here, a skewer there, and repeat until you can skewer no more. Tokyo doesn't have too many must-see museums, but they do have a lot of unique cultural experiences, including animal cafes. A lot of Tokyoites live in tiny apartments and work long hours, and they can't have pets, so they come to these places to interact with animals. All over Tokyo, you'll find a variety of animal-themed cafes, from dogs to rabbits to snakes and even owls. This one here, in the counterculture area of Harajuku, is 100% cat cafe. You pay based on the amount of time you spend interacting with the cats. They also serve coffee and other drinks, and you can even pay extra for cat treats. The highlight of any visit to a cat cafe is feeding time. Anyone who's been to Tokyo will tell you, the one thing you have to see is the Tsukiji fish market. In a country where fish is eaten for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, it's no wonder that the world's biggest fish market is here in Tokyo. But if Tsukiji is on your list of places to see, you better act fast. The fish market is scheduled to move out of its current location in November 2016 and into a larger, more modern space outside of the city center. There are 3 ways to enjoy the market: attending the tuna auction, exploring the wholesale market, and having the greatest sushi breakfast of your life. If you're planning to see the famous tuna auction, you'll have to start queuing up between 2 and 4 a.m. Only the first 120 people will be allowed in several hours later at 5 and 6 a.m. The subways don't start running until 5, so if you're serious about the auction, you'll probably want to stay nearby. The wholesale market, which is most of this footage, opens to the public at 9 a.m. The amount of fish is staggering. You'll see every imaginable kind of fish from every corner of the world. Finally, within the market, there's a strip of tiny sushi joints serving the freshest sushi you will ever eat. Don't come to Tokyo if you don't plan on having at least one sushi breakfast here. Some of the restaurants have been prominently featured in blogs and require 3+ hour waits. Since they get all their fish from the same market only steps away, I'd advise going to the one with the shortest line, the one with the most Japanese-looking patrons, or some combination of the two. Tokyo has so many different neighborhoods that choosing just one to stay in can be difficult. On different trips, we've stayed in Shinjuku, Ueno, and Ginza. Ginza is Tokyo's most fashionable neighborhood. It's also walking distance from the fish market. Some of the areas near Ueno are the only places in the city that retain an old Tokyo feel. But our favorite area to stay is probably Shinjuku, because it feels like the center of Tokyo. Regardless of where you stay, Tokyo is linked together by a reliable and clean series of subways and trains that run on the same easy-to-use ticket. Just tap in the card when you enter, and again when you leave. Nothing in this huge city is ever more than about 25 minutes away. Tokyo is really, really crowded, and getting around can often be very frustrating. Luckily, the city has a lot of parks, and many of them contain some pretty cool shrines. We're gonna go walk through one now. Tokyo has lots of shrines and temples, but unless you're really into shrines and temples, it's not necessary to see them all. The Meiji-Ji shrine, which is dedicated to a Japanese emperor, is one of the few must-sees. It's located inside a park near Harajuku, in the Shibuya ward of Tokyo. An hour walk through here is a nice break from the hustle and bustle of the city. On the other side of town, you'll find Tokyo's most well-known and oldest temple. This is the Buddhist temple of Sensoji. This more urban shrine is surrounded by a colorful market with lots of delicious food, and anyone with 100 yen to donate can receive a Buddhist blessing. No idea what this is.
I think it means I'm going to get pooped on by a bird today. I'm serious.
It is good luck.
Okay.
And go.
Japan's transportation system is one of the best in the world. High-speed trains called the Shinkansen travel from major cities with regular frequency. One of the fastest trains in Japan and on Earth is called the Nozomi, and it travels at nearly 200 miles an hour, and it can connect Tokyo to Kyoto in just over 2 hours. Train fares are really expensive, and most tourists opt to get the Japan Rail Travel Pass. However, the Nozomi is not covered under this Travel Rail Pass, and that's the train that we're going to take today.
As you speed south from Tokyo Central Station to Kyoto, you'll notice much of the countryside here is tranquil farmland, with jagged mountains or vast coastline in the background. Japan has a peaceful aura, so it's easy to forget that geologically, this is one of the most unstable places on Earth, as most of the population lives within striking distance of an earthquake, volcanic eruption, or tsunami. Once in Kyoto, you'll find a city far smaller and far more in touch with its past than Tokyo. Japanese culture and traditions are more alive and more visible here than in the nation's capital. This is the place tourists come to get a glimpse of geisha culture. If you're really lucky, you may see one scurrying through the narrow streets. While authentic geisha sightings are fairly rare, you'll almost certainly see other tourists dressed up like geishas, and some of these people take it really seriously. Kyoto is a good place to stay in a ryokan, or a traditional Japanese inn. A night in one of these often includes a traditional Japanese breakfast, served on the floor of your room. The breakfast is mostly fish, rice, and steamed tofu. A good experience, and I highly recommend doing it once while you're in Japan, but once is enough. There are only so many dried bait fish one can eat at 8 a.m. There are no beds in the ryokan. Instead, you'll be sleeping on the floor, but the mattresses are actually pretty comfy. Some of the older and cheaper ryokans still have shared bathrooms, but the more modern ones do come with private facilities. Just remember, leave your shoes at the door, and even though the kimonos are optional, it feels like a more authentic experience if you wear it. Kyoto is one of the ancient capitals of Japan. There are shrines, imperial castles, and temples all over the city. Many of them are UNESCO World Heritage Sites. Some people spend an entire week here going from temples to shrines. I'd say that's overkill. We got a good one-over of the city in just 24 hours. Another night would have been nice, but we did get to see everything we wanted, including Kinkaku-ji, or the Temple of the Golden Pavilion, the famous Bamboo Grove, which is also a good spot for fake geishas, Chion-in, which is a temple that has Japan's largest bell, and Kiyomizu-dera, which had some awesome views of the city and a really strange exhibit where you walked through a pitch-black basement in some kind of ceremony meant to symbolize rebirth in Buddhism. Once you're templed out, head to Arashiyama in the northwestern part of the city. From the train station, hike about 5 minutes through town, then another 20 minutes straight up the mountain, and you'll find yourself at the Arashiyama Monkey Park. If you've ever wanted to get up close and personal with Japanese snow monkeys, but can't make it to the far north of the country, this is your chance. There's no snow here, but there are plenty of monkeys. The monkeys mostly go about their business of sleeping and grooming each other and occasionally posing for photos. Even though the monkeys are occasionally walking in between your legs and laying right at your feet, you're not supposed to touch them. You're also not supposed to stare at them in the eye because apparently that makes them mad.